Hello and welcome back to another episode of With Whom on Zoom. My name is Hamish Gray from Voice Magazine, and today I'll be joined by Blair Christie, founder of the award-winning homelessness and mental health charity Raised Voices. Today we'll be discussing a bit of the history of Raised Voices, along with their upcoming Fringe show, Slings and Arrows. Blair, it's a pleasure to have you today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. I'm really happy to be on this with you actually, and happy to speak with you for a wee while.
I'm glad to hear it. So first of all, I'd like to ask a little bit about your own history. A bit of what you did before starting Raised Voices.
Yeah, so I was the sort of genesis of the whole thing was I was living in London, working in finance in Canary Wharf. And I hated it. I worked in finance in Edinburgh, got a transfer down to Canary Wharf, and I never liked finance, and my career never really went anywhere because I didn't really put anything in it, no love or passion. And I had a bad breakup, and then after drinking too much, as the kind of culture is down there when you're working in a city and whatnot, I was just miserable, sad, depressed, not happy, but I had money and I had loads of stuff going for me. I was just sad. And then I bumped into a couple of homeless guys walking home from the pub one night and got chatting to them, and they were amazing. Honestly, they were so full of life and spirit, cheered me up. I actually poured my heart out to them, me with everything, to speaking to these guys that you just assume don't have anything. And it just made me realize that I wanted to do something else. So I set up Raised Voices back in 2013, almost really in the spirit of those guys,
Great, that's very interesting. Thank you. So could you tell us a bit more about Raised Voices, what its goals are and how it goes about achieving them, and your own role within the charity?
Yeah, so initially when I started to set up the charity, which was down in London, but I moved back to Edinburgh sort of during the process, so I almost had to start again, which is a different governing body. But the initial thing was quite loose because I was just doing it by myself. So I just said I want to help homeless people, basically. That was it. And then I had to decide what it was, how I was going to help. So I've always liked writing comedy from a young age. So I like writing scripts, and I've done stand-up, and I like drama, movies, that sort of thing. So creative writing, I guess you could say. So I decided that I'd want to set up creative writing workshops, and it was broadly more just for homelessness. Then the problem came was how you get people along to the show, how you get your name out there. So I started chatting to other homeless organisations really to see if they could refer people or make them aware that I'm going to be setting up this sort of creative writing group with a view to doing drama and putting on shows. So yeah, the start, it was really slow at the start. Like I remember booking a room, tried to get my name out there, no one was there. Eventually a guy came along called Archie Gray, who's actually now he sort of manages Raised Voices with me. He's brilliant. So he's been there since the start, and now he directs most of it, or takes up the majority of the weight of the directing of the shows. Is brilliant, go-to man, does everything when I'm unable or I'm busy. So yeah, it's grown from that really. So yeah, it was creative writing for homelessness, and then through getting other organisations getting to know us, with now it's a lot broader than just homelessness. So it's like mental health and addiction and things like that. So yeah, we're pretty much an open door policy.
Yeah, great, thank you very much. You talked a bit about how you wanted to help homeless people and decided to take your passion for, creative writing and that. How did that blend into theatre then? In terms of what made you decide to connect those social issues with performance?
Yeah, so at the start it was more we were just writing and getting ideas down, developing skills, especially around literacy skills. Obviously, the more you're writing, if that's not something you're being that used to. And then there was a real passion to show the stuff that we've been writing. So our first few performances, that we did to the public, where like sketch shows and sort of little itty bitty things just sort of stretched together, and they were really good fun, but there wasn't sort of much meaning of sort of behind them. They were just ideas getting put down on a bit of paper and performed, and we never performed at the Fringe for a couple of years, and then decided that I think we should really test ourselves by putting on a Fringe show. So working in conjunction with Crisis and a director called George Williamson, we put on a show called Home, and it was really highlighting homelessness. So we followed a guy who was it was just on the cusp of being given his first home, and all the issues that go with that. Do you know what I mean? His nerves about it, the whole change. Will he be able to make it stick? His people telling him not to do it, blah blah blah. So we wrote a play that really meant something, and the members of Raised Voices got so much out of it. So from then, this will be our 4th Fringe that we're doing this year, and from then on, it's always it's either a story specifically about one of our members that we think that we could turn into a sort of 45-minute drama, or highlighting issues that our members have either experienced or are experiencing. So we kind of moved on from just trying to do, it was quite basic, you know what I mean, you write a comedy sketch and perform it in front of people, but to try and educate people, highlight social issues that are happening, and also the sense of achievement and self-worth that the members get from having a specific meaningful story that they have sort of presented to the wider public. And sometimes even, like, I've met, more often than not, we get feedback saying that people, I had no idea that happened, or that's what these guys have to go through. So for our members to achieve that and do that, it's so much more fulfilling. So it was kind of a natural progression, I guess, but it was us just trying to stretch ourselves and how we can do things that are more meaningful and give our members the best experience possible as well.
Right. And what sort of response did you feel you had, both from the audience during your past Fringe shows, and even from your members when you've first suggested the idea? Did it come from you, or did they push for that?
Yeah, it was my suggestion. It was my suggestion, but members, as their confidence have grown, are asking for more challenging things to do, really, as well. So we've had members that at the start just wanted to help, sort of just come to rehearsals and help out, or we used a lot of puppets back at the start and they just wanted to hold a puppet above a screen, but then after they saw everyone else's enjoyment and they were getting more confident in their own ability, they've asked to be on stage with more and more lines. So I knew that they were ready for it, and they were ready to get pushed because they were kind of asking for more responsibilities themselves. So the feedback from them was great. I mean, the Fringe story we did last year was about one of our members, and how he became homeless, and that was after a death of his child during infancy. So it's a really powerful story that there was a lot of tears shed by everyone as we went through it, and especially the audience as well. And I think it was important for some audience members to realise that not everyone on the streets is a druggie, or, do you know what I mean, a waster, or whatever they want to call them. It needs to be steered clear. There's some people that have just had really unfortunate chain of events and not the support network around them. So I think it's really good to show the public these sort of things, and hopefully as they go away from our shows, they might look at people differently, and there's a story behind behaviour, or there's a story behind someone's position in life.
So you'd say they get a sort of sense of catharsis or vindication from it.
I think so, yeah. Especially with the show we did last year, because it took the member in question years and years to realise why his life had spiraled out of control. That sort of the way he blamed himself, even though it was absolutely nothing to do with him. And so I think it was the next step as well to really open up and tell the story. So yeah, it's definitely cathartic for a lot of people. I think it's cathartic for me in a way as well, to be creative, but in a really meaningful way as well, because I could do stand up and that's quite selfish. So I suppose it's almost selfish for me to talk about me getting something from doing this as well, but at least it's giving back to other people as well.
That's great. It's almost the idea of giving them control over their own stories by putting it into a
Yeah.
narrative. That's nice.
Yeah, no, that's what you said there is really good, actually. Yeah, giving them ownership of their story as well, and that some control where before they probably felt that their lives were a bit chaotic and out of control. If you give someone control back, you're totally right. And I think a lot of time as well, you've got to have faith in people and push them, even though, like, you might think, oh, he's not going to be able to do it, or we don't want to overstress them, or I think people have a lot more ability than they in themselves might give themselves credit for, or especially you might give them credit for. So that's been great as well. Do you know what I mean? Just letting people realize their inner abilities, really.
Yeah, great. There is always I know people have worked with people who've gone through addiction, mental health, or homelessness. They understand this, but people who haven't, wouldn't expect that there's this idea of pushing them. But an important part of things like occupational therapy is always pushing that. So I can definitely understand the importance of that.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
moving on to the Fringe show this year,
Yeah.
so let's say you're handing someone a flyer for Slings and Arrows and look like they might be interested, but you're not sure. How would you convince them in a short amount of time?
I would say someone, if I was flyering, I think if you want to come and see a meaningful, real and raw performance, which is kind of what the Fringe almost used to be about and is a lot about as well, then come and see us. And the show is a part of everyone in that performance as well. And there's people, I mean, I put it down as disabled led, but there is some people with learning difficulties, there's some people with addiction, there's some people who've experienced homelessness, and the show is a culmination of experiences that each one in that cast has had. So when we were developing the show, this isn't very quick, is it? Anyway, I'll carry on. So it's each one in that cast had a say almost in how me and Archie wrote the show and put it together. So it's really interesting, I think. So because of that, I think there's going to be something in this show for everyone in the audience. I think there'll be something there that someone can sort of watch and go, oh, that's kind of like what I've been through, because there's death in it, there is addiction, there's regret, but then there's also people who've turned their life around, and positivity and being proud of yourself and doing and achieving goals, which I think pretty much everyone in the audience at some point would have some knowledge of.
Real passion behind it, so you've convinced me at least, so I'm sure.
That's good. I'll see you there.
Yeah, well, definitely will. So lastly, this is a bit of a longer question, so bear with me. Recently, the Edinburgh International Book Festival did an online event where they talked about culture in times of crisis, and they got guests on who defended against the argument that in times of crisis, arts and culture, should go out the window. And obviously, I'm very against that idea. I believe arts is always necessary, especially in times of crisis. And from what you've talked about today, I can see Raised Voices to be a perfect example of that, of people who've gone through personal crisis and gone that. So how would you personally defend against that argument of culture being unnecessary when things spiral into crisis?
Yeah, I'm strongly against it. I think, well, I mean, crisis is quite a wide-ranging word, isn't it? Like, it depends what the crisis is, but I'd argue that it's irrelevant what the crisis is, or even if there isn't a crisis, I think art and culture are vital, because it gives people identity, it brings people together, it's an escape for people, but especially in times of crisis, if I assume we're talking about COVID and the like, the amount of isolation people felt through COVID that probably hadn't felt isolation before, where a lot of our members specifically feel isolation all the time. They might be cut off, especially if someone's experienced homelessness and has been housed far away from the people that they know, or they've had a bad breakup and they've got an addiction, so they're not seeing people that they love, and then they can come and be creative and do do something cultural and fun. I think it's key for their mental health, and I think it's telling that people who tend to be liberal tend to be more creative, because it's almost that freedom. And if you can free someone's mind and take them away from whatever's making them depressed or seeking out harmful substances or whatever it is, bad behaviors, if you can take someone away from that to a positive space, then that's beneficial for everyone, not just for that specific person that's being creative. So I'd say art and culture, one of the most important things we can do in life, regardless of crisis, but even more so in the times of crisis.
Great, that's a really excellent way of putting it. So that's all the questions I've got for you today. Thank you so much for coming in. It's been a pleasure having you. And to the people at home, Slings and Arrows will be showing at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival at Surgeons Hall from the 23rd to the 28th of August. I know I'm convinced to definitely go see it. I would implore you to go to and support Raised Voices. I believe they do have a winter show every year. Do you think that's on the ball for on the table for this year?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Winter show, we usually allow the cast, not allow, that sounded harsh, but the cast have more say in the writing of the show. For the Fringe, we usually have a bit more control because obviously we're paying customers, but we'd usually put on a free show around Christmas time that's usually a bit fun as well. So yeah, there will be a show at Christmas of some form. We just haven't got our heads wrapped around it yet, what it's going to be.
Well, I'll look forward to that. And yeah, well, so please, if you enjoyed, like and subscribe. And I've been Hamish Gray from Voice Magazine. Until next time, take care.
Thank you very much.